Good morning, guys. 5 a.m. advisory came down just 30 minutes ago, and that does maintain the intensity. Category 2, 110-mile-per-hour winds. Now, you may look at that and say, well, no longer a major hurricane, not a huge deal. We've traded the peak winds, major hurricane status peak winds, to a larger wind field. Now the tropical storm force winds, 39 miles per hour or greater, extend out 400 miles in diameter from the center. We are way outside of that cone, but again, with those winds stretching that far out, we are still going to have some pretty moderate to even major impacts in parts of Hampton Roads in northeast North Carolina. As it moves inland somewhere around Wilmington, it does start to weaken with the interaction with the land as a remnant low, and it's going to drop a whole ton of rain. We're going to be measuring rain in feet rather than inches in parts of North Carolina and South Carolina. There's how it looks on satellite imagery. A very large storm over 450 miles wide. And it is not as symmetrical as it was yesterday. It doesn't have a defined eye. That's thanks to some dry air and some wind shear that's worked on in. But it will be interacting with the jet stream and a quick little burst of some more intensity. It could be possible here in the next 24 hours before it makes landfall. Some of the outermost bands of clouds already working in over Hampton Roads. Not so much the rain. That's still the majority of it offshore. But a few outlying areas seeing some isolated showers and storms moving on in over the Buxton area over Hatteras Island. Watches and warnings have been upgraded to warnings across all of our area. The orange is tropical storm warning. South of there is a hurricane warning, and that's for tropical storm or hurricane conditions likely within the next 36 hours. So our main threats, 2 to 5 inches of rainfall, locally higher, sustained winds up and over 35 miles per hour for like 2 days, and tidal and coastal flooding issues as well.